everybody, and welcome to this week's Family Story Time. I'm Miss Amy, and we're going to start by singing our usual good morning song. Good morning to you, and how do you do? I'm happy to see you. Good morning to you. Look behind me. Do you see what's behind me? I got a turkey, and you can't quite see because it's very up high. It says, give thanks. We got Thanksgiving coming up. There's a lot of wonderful things to think about on Thanksgiving, but one of the best things to think about is our family and friends and being together. So the song we're going to sing today is called The More We Get Together. Oh, the more we get together, together, together. Oh, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. 'Cause your friends are my friends and my friends are your friends. Oh, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. Unfortunately, this year you might not be getting together in person with all the people you normally get together with. It may be too dangerous. We don't want to get anyone sick or hurt. So what we can do is get together the way we're getting together, over video, over phone calls. Because it doesn't matter if you're not physically together in the same room. It just matters if you're together in your hearts. Now, talking about Thanksgiving in your hearts, my favorite thing about Thanksgiving is something you can do when you're all together, and that's share food. Sharing food is one of the happiest things you can share together. It's so much fun to eat at the same time as somebody else and taste a delicious thing with somebody else, and that's one of the best things about Thanksgiving. And that's why our books today are about sharing. This book is called Thank You, Amu. It's by Mora. This is a picture of her in the back. Mora. Her parents come from Nigeria, where they speak Igbo. And Igbo, the name Omu, means queen, or at least a very important lady to the community, who everybody thinks of as a queen. But Oge says that when she was a little girl, that was what she called her grandmother. So if you want to imagine that Omu in this story, she's kind of like the grandmother to the whole community, and you'll see why when we read her story. Thank you, Omu. On the corner of First Street and Long Street, on the very top floor, Omu was cooking a thick red stew in a big fat pot for a nice evening meal. She seasoned, stirred it, and took a small taste. What a delicious stew, Omu said. Tonight's dinner will surely be the best I've ever had. With that, Omu put down her spoon and went to read a book before supper. As the thick red stew simmered on the stove, its scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall, toward the street, and around the block until someone was at the door. When Omu opened it, she saw a little boy. Little boy? Omu exclaimed. What brings you to my home? I was playing with my race car down the hall and I smelled the most delicious smell, the little boy replied. What is it? It's thick red stew. Stew. He sighed. That sure smells yummy. Omu thought for a moment. She was saving her stew for dinner, but she had made quite a bit. It would not hurt to share. Would you like some? The little boy nodded, and so Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. Thank you, Omu, the little boy said. and went on his way. With that, Omu closed the door and went back to her book. As she read, her thick red stew's scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall, toward the street, and around the block until someone was at the door. When Omu opened the door, this time she saw a police officer. "Miss Police Officer," Omu exclaimed, "what brings you to my home?" "I was on duty down the street when I smelled the most delicious smell," Miss Police Officer replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." "Ah, stew," she said, and her mouth watered. "That sounds mighty tasty." Omu thought for a moment. There was still enough stew to share. "Would you like some?" The police officer nodded. Once again, Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. "Thank you, Omu," the officer said, and went on her way. And so, for the second time, Omu closed the door and went back to her book. Sure enough, as she read, her thick red stew's scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall, toward the street, around the block until again, someone was at Omu's door. This time, when she opened it, she saw, can you guess who it might be? A hot dog vendor. "Oh, Mr. Hot Dog Vendor," Omu exclaimed, "what brings you to my home?" "I was selling my hot dogs down the block when I smelled the most delicious smell," Mr. Hot Dog Vendor replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." "Oh, stew." The vendor licked his lips. "That sounds quite delectable." So Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. "Thank you, Omu," the hot dog vendor said, and went on his way. Throughout the day, people from all across the neighborhood knocked on Omu's door. She fed a shop owner, a cab driver, a doctor, an actor, a lawyer, a dancer, a baker, an artist, a singer, an athlete, a bus driver, a construction worker. Even the mayor stopped by. And each time they knocked, Omu shared. Soon the day darkened, the streetlights brightened, and it was finally time for dinner. But when Omu opened her big fat pot of thick red stew for her nice evening meal, it was empty. Omu sniffed. There goes the best dinner I ever had. Sorry and blue, she sat at the table with her empty pot until... Who could that be? Omu wondered. When she opened her door, she saw the little boy, the police officer, the hot dog vendor, the shop owner, the cab driver, the doctor, the actor, the lawyer, the dancer, the baker. Like everyone she fed today was at her door. "Oh, I'm sorry, everyone," Omu sighed. "My thick red stew is all gone. I have nothing left to share." The little boy tugged at Omu's sleeve. "Don't worry, Omu. We're not here to ask. We are here to give." The police officer carried in a fresh salad. The mayor entered with a roast chicken. The baker brought a collection of sweet goodies. Even the little boy presented Omu with something special in a shiny red envelope. Everyone who'd knocked on Omu's door that day squeezed inside her tiny apartment, and together they ate, danced, and celebrated. While Elmo's big fat pot of thick red stew was empty, her heart was full of happiness and love. That dinner was the best she ever had. Thank you, Omu. That's the little boy's card, if you couldn't tell. The end. Okay, everybody. For this part of our story time, we're going to do something a little different. I'm actually going to read you another story. But instead of this being just a regular read aloud where I read you a story, instead we're going to turn it into a counting game, a math game. If you know this story, you probably already know exactly what story I'm talking about just by looking at the pictures at the board here, full of cookies. This book is called The Doorbell Rang by Pat Hutchins, and it's another story about sharing our food with everyone who comes to the door. Elmo's door knocked. In this book, the doorbell rings. "I've made some cookies for tea," said Ma. "Good," said Victoria and Sam. "We're starving." "Share them between yourselves," said Ma. "I made plenty." "Let's see," they said. "One for Sam, one for Victoria, two for Sam, two for Victoria, three for Sam, three for Victoria." How many is that? 4 for Sam, 4 for Victoria, 5 for Sam, 5 for Victoria, how many do they each get? "That's 6 each," said Sam and Victoria. "They look as good as Grandma's," said Victoria. "They smell as good as Grandma's," said Sam. "No one makes cookies like Grandma," said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Tom and Hannah from next door. "Come in," said Ma. "You can share the cookies." Okay, well now we've got Tom and Hannah too. So here's Sam and Victoria's. One for Tom, one for Hannah, 2 for Tom, 2 for Hannah. Let's see, how many does Sam and Victoria still have? 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have 2, so they're gonna need one more. So there's 4 people. How many cookies do they each have? "That's 3 each," said Sam and Victoria. "They smell as good as your Grandma's," said Tom. "And look as good," said Hannah's. "Nobody makes cookies like Grandma," said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Peter and his little brother. "Come in," said Ma. "You can share the cookies." Okay, we got 2 more people here. Oh, let's make another plate. 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Now we got a plate in the middle, or 2 plates in the middle. So if they each give 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, does everybody have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plates? Does everybody have the same number of cookies now? How many cookies do they have? 1, 2. Everybody has that? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. "That's 2 each," said Victoria and Sam. "They look as good as your Grandma's," said Peter, "and smell as good." "Nobody makes cookies like Grandma," said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Joy and Simon with their 4 cousins. I'm going to give... Uh-oh, we lost a cookie. I'm going to have you see the pictures a little bit better, but you see, that's a lot of cousins. So, Joy, Simon, and 1, 2, 3, 4 cousins. How many new people is that in all? 6 new people. And we already had 6 people. So let's see. If we make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many cookies does each person get? That's 1 cookie each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma's, said Joy. And look as good, said Simon. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. How many cookies do we have here? 12. And how many people do we have here? 12. What are we going to do now? The doorbell rang and rang. Oh dear, said Ma, as the children stared at the cookies on their plates. Perhaps you'd better eat them before we open the door. We'll wait, said Sam. Guess who it was? It was Grandma, with an enormous tray of cookies. See her tray? Ugh, that's a lot more than 12. How nice to have so many friends to share them with, said Grandma. It's a good thing I made a lot. And no one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. Do you think they have enough cookies to share? I think so too. See how much fun it is to share. You might have to work it out, but the more you share, the more you end up getting in the end. Now, like I said earlier, you might not be able to actually share food in person with people this year, or with all the people you normally do, but you may find some other ways to share food. Maybe you can send a gift to someone in the mail. Maybe you can buy some food for a charity like a food shelter, or other people who give food to people who don't have as much food. Maybe you can volunteer to make food with some grown-up help at such a charity or food shelter. There are many ways that you can share the joy of yummy food with other people. Oh, I forgot the best one. You bake some cookies, you put them on a plate, you cover them up, and you leave them on your neighbor's front door. Ring the doorbell and run away. So I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether you're with people in person sharing your food, or whether people are far away and you're only saying hello over the video. In the meantime, let's say goodbye. Tickle the stars, tickle your toes. Turn around and tickle your nose. Reach down low, reach way up high. Story time is over, so wave goodbye.